Happy morning, friends. I'm very excited to be here this morning. A very warm welcome to the amazing Thai Global Summit 2020 Day 2. My name is Lokesh Nathani, your host for the session. I am the founder of a startup called Mera Wellness. The topic for the session is innovation as a key driver to growth. Innovation has different meanings for different people. To me, it is about creating new value. It is about staying relevant. It is about great ideas that are executed brilliantly and communicated in the simplest possible way. In the words of management guru Peter Drucker, innovation is the specific instrument of entrepreneurship, the act that endows resources with a new capacity to create wealth. To know more about the why and how of innovation is the key driver to growth, we have with us a very diverse and distinguished panel of speakers. It is my privilege to introduce our speaker and moderator for the session, Mr. Mohit Bhasin, partner KPMG India. Mohit is a management consulting professional with over 15 years of experience and focus on large-scale government reform agendas, programs. Mohit is a partner with KPMG in India and leads the economic development advisory and startup space with a team of close to 100 professionals. He has rich experience of leading several national priority programs, including Startup India, India's assessment for World Bank's Doing Business report, implementation of WTO's reforms in India, to name a few. Mohit is a Thai Delhi MCR charter member and is passionate in networking, developing, and collaborating for countries' resilient and always innovative startup ecosystem. So, friends, please join me and welcome Mr. Mohit Bhasin. Over to you, Mohit.
Thank you, Lokesh. A very good morning to all the participants. My name is Mohit Basin. It's been a privilege and an honor to be a part of this session and great opportunity to connect with all you few, share thoughts and engage on various diverse elements for such an overarching subject called innovation. Uh, as you know, innovation in India is a multifaceted initiative we all have started with. And I have with me a very known and eminent panelist, Mr. Somin Chakravarti. And of course, Somin does not need introduction, but you may be aware Somin is a co-founder and managing director of Sumeru Ventures, which is a global technology fund based out of Los Angeles and the Valley. The fund specializes in investing in technologies such as AI, ML, blockchain, and visual collaboration. Prior to anchoring this program, Somen was having a senior level positions across the world's largest Fortune 500 companies, including IBM, Microsoft, Hughes, and so on and so forth. And on his personal time, Somen is quite actively engaged with the Out of Living Foundation. So without taking much time, I would like to start the session.
Uh,
Somen,
thanks, thanks,
please.
Mohit. Good morning, everyone. And thanks, Ty, for giving me this opportunity to speak today on this wonderful conference. This topic today, I will make it more human-centric, as other aspects of this we've already known and seen many times, but still I'll make it more human-centric so that we can relate with it. I think we all agree that some of the largest companies in the world are product companies driven by IP-led innovation. The US has led this globally for decades together, and it will be helpful to understand this model and try to replicate the same in the Indian context, particularly now when we're trying to build a self-reliant or Atmanirbhar Bharat. To build an IP-led ecosystem, we of course need world-class education and training, access to capital, markets, mentors, societal support, fear of failure, regulatory frameworks, governmental support, etc. But at the core of all this is a human being, right? Driving a startup or an organization. While many countries have tried to replicate this model across their geographies or their specific areas, but the success to the critical human component is probably the one that has been lacking compared to the various other components that they've been able to put together. At the core of any IP-led innovation lies global ideation leading to innovation. When I talk about this, I think it's very important to understand that Global ideation is an art by virtue of which you can visualize a world-class product without moving out of your chair, right? And if that is so, how do you kind of do that, right? How do you um, kind of visualize a solution for the world is probably the interesting piece. To answer this question, it is important to understand how does a human being look at innovation or inventions internally. First of all, I break this into three components. The first component would be you have to be relevant to the technology era that you're in. We passed through the hardware era, the software era, the network era, the search engine era, and now is the era of AI, ML, blockchain, visual collaboration, and many others that are going to come in the future. Now, if your idea or ideation is out of this era, if you're too much ahead or behind, then that is something which will be difficult to monetize in that specific time frame. Then comes the second aspect of it. We all know that necessity is the mother of invention, and that lets us to innovate and innovate in various forms that we all do. And it's absolutely true. However, I have a specific theory which I'd like to share with you, and you all can disagree. I call it the theory of command and control. Above everything else, human beings love the element of command and control. They want to control themselves. They want to control families, employees, the climate, the pet, the dog, the tie, whatever around it. And this has led to a very interesting behavior. The only thing that possibly they are not able to control is what they are blessed with physically, that is the human body. Imagine you can use your mind, but can you truly control it? Probably not. So what did you do? You innovated and invented the computer system and took it out of the body and controlled it. So are your eyes, which acts as your cameras. So are your audio devices, your ears. And the best networks on earth that flows through our veins has been replicated outside. So every major innovation that has happened is nothing but an extension of the human body. So your ideation and thought process, if it correlates or relates very close to that, you will not go very wrong. And let me elucidate that with an example that we have been kind of I have myself encountered. We were building a 17-way video conferencing software way back in 2007. That's much, gentlemen, that's much before the era of Zoom and the post-COVID and etc. When we demonstrated this on a laptop in 2007, we were told by a global expert that, Shaman, it's nice, very nice, but who does a 17-way conference from a laptop? Those were the good old days of Sony, Polycom, and Tandberg. You had large screens with 4-way videos, a lot of bandwidth. While my answer that day to that global authority was that, sir, hopefully let a decade pass and hopefully we'll both be around. And I'm so happy that it's turned out true. But the point here is not about that. The point here is, if you look at us as human beings, one of the closest things that we always want to do. So what most of the important things in your life that you've done after seeing, not hearing, right? In spite of all the audio that we use on a continuous basis. And it continues today. Human beings believe in the fundamental concept of seeing is believing, right? That's a phrase. Now, all we had to do was think of that requirement of the human being and transport it. So the closest thing to human seeing and seeing is believing is only going to be video in the future. That was the visualization. And that is the point I probably wanted to make here. The third interesting piece from the human component is that the ability to solve a particular problem. So let's say you have an idea, a world-class idea for a product or a solution. So the traditional approach is you learn all the skills, you acquire all the skills that you have, and then try to implement the skills on whatever problem that you found worthwhile to solve. Turn it the other way around. First, find out the problem. After finding out the problem, can you at least convince 2 other team members or 3 other team members that this is what they're going to, bet their lives on? If you can do that, then think of all the skills you require to go through that. To kind of deliver that. And then pick the mentors, pick the investors, pick everything around it in a perfect ecosystem. And again, going back to the IP-led innovation, if you look at all these fundamental components, if they can be made as a centerpiece and all the other components built around it, we then truly move onto the era of IP-led innovation. With this, I would hand it over to my colleague Mohit, who's of course led product growth in the software space and regulatory frameworks, to be able to highlight that much to our viewers today. And I'd hand it over to Mohit. Over to you, Mohit.
Thanks, Somen. I think it's interesting. Now, this digital meeting, virtual meetings have become so normal. And I personally feel that this is a highly productive way for us to engage when we can get to see each other and work. And your invention in 2007 was all I can say is wow. That was very much timed. But this whole COVID thing has amplified and commercialized it into a multi-billion-dollar industry. So just let me just now share a perspective on how things are unfolding when it comes to the Indian ecosystem. As I'm assuming we have quite a few number of private sector entities, startups, and enterprise who are currently watching our session are from India. Since I have an exposure of working with government, so I can just enlighten some thoughts around how government is enabling the entire ecosystem and how we as a private sector enterprise or a startup can leverage that. So innovation, as we all know, is a quite a large subject. It can happen from as small as uh, simplifying a process to as high tech as bringing a high tech technology. Now, government has launched multiple programs. So one of the famous program you might have picked up is Agni program, which is primarily designed to commercialize innovation. We have a chief technology officer in the similar rank and officer, senior officer, who is managing this at a federal level, at a national level. Then there is another massive amount of work happening as a dedicated track under a program called Startup India, which I'm assuming you all must have heard about. Now, that is one initiative wherein the prime genesis of an entity to call as a startup is an innovation, and that has also been defined in some shape and size. So, Startup India is another program which is encouraging innovation right from a simple process to a product level modification, and product is becoming more and more important. Then another big thing, what is happening in the current ecosystem of Indian industrial ecosystem is around coming up of a massive base infrastructure. So we must have heard about something called as a digital stack, which is quite prevalent now, and a lot of startups and companies are coming and experimenting on that digital stack so that they can connect and do what traditionally has never been thought of, whether it is related to financial services or creating a financial transaction and so on and so forth. In the similar dimension, there are many more pilots projects are going on, and those projects are eventually going to unfold innovation and hence business opportunity for all of our future startups or the current startups in unveiling a new level of business. So for example, as you may have picked up, health is another area where is a lot of experimentation is happening. So the health stack is a initiative which is creating a base infrastructure for the medical or the healthcare community or even a tech player to come forward and fill those gaps, which is currently not being served by a traditional healthcare system in India. Now, this is in itself is a tremendous opportunity. So I'll give you one example. While we were working in the COVID time. Traditionally, what happens, we see that whenever anybody fell ill, we only start to believe that we can be cured when we are stepping inside a hospital. But the entire telemedicine thing, which has become a new norm, we would never imagine that pre-COVID, the telemedicine can also become a solution happening. Now, the innovation I can say is going to happen when this telemedicine and the traditional infra-based healthcare is combining and providing healthcare services to a common citizen, so that you don't essentially need to touch the hospital in order to start feeling cured. I mean, those kind of infrastructure which are already choked up can be relaxed for a critical element. So pre and post hospitalization things can be outsourced and people are getting confidence. So this is a very small innovation done by some of the startups who are doing phenomenally well and helping us to fight through this tough time, right? And this is an integration and is the new norm future we can look at. Likewise, I'm aware about some more initiative which is happening, especially in the space of as simple as livestock. As I'm aware that we are coming up with a livestock stack. So imagine if we are sampling or tagging the entire livestock population of the country. then what is the kind of impact we can create by understanding their behavior, their medical situation, their productivity, and then connecting it back to the entire food value chain, improving the quality of our produce, improving the quality of what we eat, consume, and then perish. So imagine that's a kind of backward integration. It can make a phenomenal thing. And this will be complemented by another big initiative I'm aware about. It's called the Agri Stack, which is also in making. Now, if we make these kind of platforms in place and enable our startups to come and play in this space, will be a huge thing. So, what my recommendation here is for the startups to keep watching this space, because this is where the action is happening, and I'm just giving an illustration of it. And at the same time, we have been requesting the government, and this also goes back to the government, that if you can create some sort of a regulatory mechanism or sort of a sandbox for startups to experiment within the specified regulatory regime, not at the cost of the red tapeism, but at the cost of flourishing and experimenting and growing in that space, will really help us to unfold the entire ecosystem, which is purely innovation led. Now, coming to the most important topic also we touched upon is the product based growth. Frankly speaking, India has done phenomenally well, especially in the tech space, but that's more on the services side of it. Product is now becoming a focus attention for us as a country, and you must be aware about the policy framework which government has launched in 2019. But this is the new norm. We are expecting our companies to become specialized in technology related to products, and hence becoming a supplier which can fulfill not only the need of a massive Indian population, but at least in the global arena. So that is something I personally see it's going to happen. So this is the landscape which is in making, which we are unfolding at a national level, and huge scope for all of us as an entrepreneurship community to complement, create new products, new solutions, and assist the overall global ecosystem to serve. Now, let me move to the next line of thinking. And Somin, I would like to draw your attention, since you specialize in this domain of AI, ML, blockchain, right? And there's a tremendous amount of work happening in the United States as well. Now, do you have some thoughts as to India is also at the same time aspiring to catch up in terms of how can we use AI, ML, and data especially, and how can we pick one or two lessons which has done, and we can possibly inspire and try to see that it can be put to use for us at the India level. Somin, you're on mute, Somin.
So, Mohit, thank you so much for that wonderful overview that you gave, and it really opens up the context. I think one of the suggestions that I could have is set up global competency centers. Right now, artificial intelligence. So everything. If you take a common example, the video that we are watching today is dumb. So what we're essentially doing is capturing, compressing, decompressing, and we are all able to see each other. Right. If you look at telemedicine, it's not only important for the doctor to see the patient, but it's also important to see how can I see an X-ray, or how can I see maybe an ultrasound feedback from the ultrasound system live, because just seeing you may not help me to be able to gauge my way of treating you. So this is now going to become intelligent, and the way it's going to become intelligent, and let me give you with a few examples. At the early level, data, when we were starting our careers, data was dumb and we were operating in green terminals, and we used to go for coffee and come back and still something was going on. And today, data is so intelligent, we can virtually even, moving to the most simple fact, even an Excel sheet, you can almost run your organization with it, right? It's gone to that level of intelligence. If you look at video today, the first thing that happened is in security applications, where a bag remains unidentified, gets the cameras pick up, and immediately someone comes. The second level is what human beings do to one another. They try to assess one another in a meeting, right? In a physical meeting. In this framework, we are all 3 by 3. So a 6'4" guy and a 5'2" guy are all the same in this framework. So there's no differentiation, and that's a good part of it, because otherwise you sometimes get overwhelmed in physical meetings of that sort. But all I'm trying to say is that you are sitting with 10 people and you're not talking, and so am I. How do I assess what's going on as Mohit, the decision maker, in this particular meeting? How did it go, good or bad? So facial recognition technologies are coming up. And then the third level is breaking the social barrier. Now, when you go to Japan, what you essentially do is you kind of learn to bow or speak a few Japanese words, and they do the same when they come to India to do our namaste. Imagine in a live video, you are doing a namaste, and I see you bowing, and I'm actually bowing, and you see me doing a namaste. That's breaking the social barrier. So, like these components, video is going to become, AI is going to incorporate in every facet, whether it's healthcare, whether it's fintech, whether it's manufacturing. Now, one of the problems that I see globally, and then I'll come to the Indian context, AI has got two sets of problems. One, it is very new. And so for the first time, you're trying to take intelligence out of your body and control it, right? So there's going to be challenges because you yourself are not aware of the depth of intelligence that you have and all that you can do within yourself. Now, second part is large organizations, which has built up processes across many, many years, Six Sigma, all the processes and all the certifications that they've gone from. What happens is that they will find it challenging to all of a sudden incorporate AI, ML, blockchain by a couple of nerds wearing shorts, asking for anything more that the organization is not very, very happily looking at. So the transposition that happens is that there'll be companies which will come up and solve larger problems for larger enterprises at one end and at the entry level at the other end. So the startup ecosystem that's present in our country will have to think that which focus area do they want to focus? Do they want to focus on an autonomous vehicle or a healthcare application or a fintech application? Or do they want to kind of take it to a level where they're solving a problem of a large automobile company or a healthcare company or any one of those companies? So I think you would need competency centers to be set up, and preferably two of the largest democracies can collaborate with one another in terms of there's people all across. There are people who are cross value adding everywhere. So as we are getting value added in India, so are so many Indians value adding in the United States. So I think if two of the largest economies can get together in creating competency centers driven by governmental frameworks, I think that will help to create teams which can then lead on to what the country requires at this present moment. So first, I would recommend some level of a competency center being set up by the frameworks or bodies like the bodies which are interested in it.
Thanks, Omin. I think you said it very right. The video which we are currently using to interact is the very primitive approach, but going forward, I can personally see the entire virtualization, the customization happening, and this is going to be the new normal for us to connect. It's so convenient, so inexpensive, and easy, most importantly. But I just would like to take time. I think we have 2 more minutes to go. Wanted to summarize the line of thinking, what we have alluded for our participants as well as for Tai to assimilate is we talked about the entire IP-led innovation that India definitely needs to strengthen the approach towards intellectual property so that our enterprise gets a safeguard mechanism when it comes to going global, when it comes to playing in the global ecosystem. Second element we talked about is that focus on product-led innovation, wherein we are known for a set of products or a set of work stream which is replicable or having a business case or a use case for the entire global economy. And third, and the most important thing, what Somen has alluded, is about the competency center is all about specialization. We cannot run in this ecosystem by being a generalist. We need to identify the competencies wherein we need to specialize as a country, as an ecosystem, or as an economy, and then going 10 levels deep so that we not only innovate, we become the research hub, we also become the global knowledge supply.
Last words, Somin.
It's been wonderful for this session, and I think the next generation should be of IP-led innovation in India, and that's what I'm deeply looking forward to. Happy to value add in any which way to any of our participants here. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Mohit, any last words from you?
I totally echo with Somen. I think it's been a great privilege of putting our thoughts across to the wider audience and the eminent panelist here. I think we have good takeaways from the session, which we can socialize and work on. So thank you, Lokesh.
Uh, yeah, great. So, from all of us at Thai Global Summit 2020 and all the attendees, a big thank you, Mohit and Somen. I fully understand that, we as a nation are now obviously moving from the cliche called
Thank you.
Jugaad to
Connect
innovation
Audi Solutions
slowly.
telehealth
And
challenge. Line is
thank you
simplest for video
so much for
consultation.
your time,
Scaling
for
the
your
video
wisdom.
consultation.
And I'm sure our attendees have enriched today with the knowledge that you shared, with the experience that you shared. And this will definitely help us. And I'm sure in time to come, we'll be also a product-led innovation country and not just services. Thank you so much once again from all of us at Thai Global Summit 2020. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.